Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr.
Good
Bober.
day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Caught mid-conversation once again.
Just like,
know.
oh, it's time to go.
And go.
Hey, thank you, fans, man. I don't know what the hell happened, but you guys blow it up.
That's it.
And God bless you, every single one of you.
Keep blowing it up.
It just
blow it up to your friends so they can blow it up.
Exactly.
That's right.
You guys
Let's all blow up together.
You guys are spreading the word. Obviously, it's getting out, and wow. And we got some cool people coming up. So, man.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. And thank you. And thank you for going through the Amazon banner on the ampsandaxescast.com website.
Right. That's where I go.
And for following us on all the social media, especially Instagram. And it's awesome. And, of course, you're giving the love to Mr. Jason Seditas.
That's right. Mr.
With that quick lick.
Quick lick.
Yeah, man.
I was perusing some magazine a week or so ago. No, actually, this turned up online somewhere. And it was a very interesting story that I clicked on because I got to know more about this. So it has to do with Gibson.
Okay.
And during wartime, actually.
What'd they make?
What'd they make? Okay, here's the real clincher of the story. Now, during wartime, all the factories were supposed to be putting out stuff for Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you did...
Ford was making tanks.
Right. You found a way to turn your business into something that would benefit... into making a product that would benefit the war effort.
Sure.
Okay? Probably a little easier back then because not everything was, CNC and computerized and very, very, very specialized. You actually had people using tools and hand operated equipment to make things.
Cars were welded by hand.
Yeah. It's none of this automation. So it was a lot easier to change things around. So everybody was making whatever they could for the war effort.
Sure.
So accordingly, Gibson was supposed to be making stuff. I guess it would have to be some sort of woodworking for. I mean, who knows what? Maybe
the supports for the cots and the tents.
Right, or supports for cots and boats, or
Sure.
something like that. Anything. So what their woodworkers could do.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it is a lot of these companies. All the men were out at war.
So it was all women.
A lot of women working in these factories.
Rosie the Riveter?
Exactly, Rosie the Riveter. Very good, very good. So, supposedly Gibson changes over and is making something for the war effort, which means they're not making instruments, at this time. And that's like between 1940 and 45 for the war effort, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there are no records of them making guitars during this time, not on the books anyway.
Exactly.
Turns out that the all-women force, which I think was about 75 or 85 women in the Gibson factory, made 10,000 guitars during this time.
You got to be kidding me.
No. And they kept them off the books because they weren't supposed to be making guitars. Now, these guitars have started to turn up over all the years, and they're starting to become documented. That's why they know there's about 10,000 of these things made now. They're called banner guitars because on the headstock, right under the Gibson name, there's like an unfurled banner. That it was a different thing that they put on the headstock during this time.
Really?
But there are no official Gibson records of these guitars being made because they weren't supposed to be making guitars.
I could never imagine Gibson trying to get one over on anybody.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, we'll interview him. I don't care. But I mean,
I found that so interesting. I mean, there's.
Well, I mean, if you're making tent poles, for Christ's sake, I'm sure you could probably make guitars too on the side. Although you're not supposed.
You're not supposed to be. Turns out there were somewhere around 10,000 of these banner guitars made during the war years.
10,000.
10,000. That's
10,000?
like 2,000 a year.
That's a lot of guitars back then.
Yeah.
2,000 a year.
A year.
What is that a day? 30, 40 a day?
It's a little under 200 a month. 180, 190 a month. It's
it's about 20 guitars a day, right? No.
35 or so. Something like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Crazy, huh?
A day.
So,
wow, and they were all handmade back then.
Mm-hmm. And there's something different. There's something different about the construction too, because they can tell when they look at these guitars that they were making them differently during this time, like bracing wise and everything else. The guitars were just different during this time. Yeah. So, and I think they were probably using woods that they didn't normally use, or parts that they didn't normally use, or scraps or whatever.
Well, I'm sure mahogany wasn't being imported too much.
Yeah,
during those days.
But
because all the trafficking, it was just they were the only resources we were getting in were the things that we needed.
Right.
I don't think mahogany was on that list.
Right. So
or rosewood.
Everything was different, but Gibson banner guitars.
Look at that.
The whole story behind it.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
I didn't until I'm probably late to the party here because we're probably going to get comments. Everybody knows.
You guys are idiots.
Everybody knows about these guitars. Well, I didn't. I just found it very interesting and a very interesting piece of history.
10,000 guitars.
Yeah.
Well, that won't make them valuable.
No,
I wouldn't imagine.
No, probably not.
10,000.
Yeah.
Well, it all depends how many are left. And what kind of instruments they were, because
they might not be valuable, but they're probably very collectible.
It may be, yes. But it also, just because it is from then, doesn't make it like a great instrument.
Right.
There was a lot of bad ones that went out the door.
Oh yeah. I mean, even when they were supposed to be making guitars, there were a lot of bad ones that went out the door. Yeah. But anyway,
Joe Bonamassa will attest to that. He said, here's a 1955 Les Paul. This is an example of what a bad one looks like.
It's unplayable.
He said literally, it's unplayable and unfixable.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just not, it could not live.
Wow. Well, I guess you get bad ones all over the place. But, so much for the women of the war effort, continuing to bring us musical instruments during those war years.
That's so wild.
So, today's guest, we have a woman that's continuing to bring us music.
Yeah, and boy does she.
Yeah, and on a guitar that's got an extra string too. I've never played.
Makes my head hurt.
I know, probably make your hand hurt too.
Yeah,
but I don't know. She seems to do fine with it.
It doesn't make my head hurt because I don't like it. It just makes my head hurt because I can't understand it.
Exactly. You're right. Right. It's not the physical. It's the mental abuse that it right.
Yeah.
Rots. Gives you words. They're hard.
It's sort of like when you get a little older and then you go to run and you go, what is happening?
I haven't done this in a while.
This shouldn't hurt.
Yeah, well, I don't think these 7 strings hurt our guests. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back with our guest of the week, Ms Nili Brosh.
Hey, it's Andy Alador, and you were listening to Amps and Axes, so keep jamming.
All right, and we're back, and as promised, we have our guest of the week, Ms Nili Brosh. Nili, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. thank you for taking the time to be on with us. I know you got a busy schedule, and we'll be as no, I was going to say we'll be as extinct as possible. No, we won't. We never are.
and I'll start. I saw a video the other day, and it was amazing. She was doing Showtime by David Lee Roth, and that's Jason Becker on that recording.
Nice.
And Nili, you nailed that thing.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you crushed that thing. I was like, oh my God. On a 7-string, by the way.
Yes, I've
big
seen
fretboard, just tearing that thing up. And I was like, I've never seen anybody do that song.
Wow.
I'm sure there's people out on the internet, but it was really cool to see it, and it was just down to even the little bit of phrasing, just those little nuances. Mm-hmm. She was nailing it right on, man. It was so cool.
Well, yeah, she picks the easy ones.
Yeah, you picked only like the hardest guy that's ever walked the planet to try to figure a song out.
Right. Well, kudos to you. Kudos to
Thanks.
you.
Yes.
And we're going to find out where this all came from first, because that's what I like to do.
Yes.
So, where were you born, and what really got you into music? Tell us a little bit about your history.
Okay. Well, I was born in Israel, and I have 3 older brothers. I come from a fairly big family where everybody's a lot older than I am. So I guess growing up in the early 90s, listened or got exposed to some music that probably other kids my age wouldn't have necessarily had the exposure to at such a young age, like classic rock, like Queen and Pink Floyd and stuff like that. And one of my brothers he's also a professional guitar player now. And, he started playing guitar when I was very young, and I just kind of wanted to be like him, and I loved music. So I just decided one day to follow in his footsteps, so to speak,
Cool. So parents were not musical, and somehow your brother just got into it?
My parents are musical, but they were not musicians by trade. My brother was just the biggest Iron Maiden fan of all time, which actually originated, as I imagine it probably did for a lot of people, through the album covers that were so, inviting visually. Yeah. So he discovered Iron Maiden in an early age and decided that's kind of what he wanted to do, and it all went from there,
Nice. Wow, this kind of started with Iron Maiden. It's always funny to find out where things what put the germ in people,
Well, she's she's younger.
Yes.
So her exposure, like some of our guys that are our age that were exposed to the Beatles, not necessarily with a girl her age, because it was 1988 when she was born.
Right.
So it's not like the Beatles were knocking the charts down in 88.
No, that's true. They might have, a couple of songs might have still been charting, but who knows?
I'm sure she knows them, but but her brother was probably jamming out to Iron Maiden.
Right. And I think, is this the first Maiden we've had that somebody stated as a reference?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Very cool.
Couldn't go wrong there, though.
No. Kind of hard.
It's Maiden.
Exactly. So when your brother got into this and then turned you on, it sounds like he turned you on to stuff that was like more classic earlier than Maiden.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 older brothers than that, or oldest brothers, were into all different kinds of stuff. So I was just exposed to the other stuff as just what my family was listening to. Mm-hmm. So different things came from different siblings, but the guitar playing side started with that.
Nice. And did you wind up asking your brother for instruction and borrowing his instrument, or how did that come about?
A little bit. I've never taken formal instruction from him, but it was just I had my own teachers and all that kind of stuff, but it was always around, mm-hmm. And I was just kind of always exposed to it, whether I want, and so were my parents, whether they wanted to or not. So there was just a lot of loud playing going on over the years.
That's awesome. I love it. We used to, badger my parents with loud music all the time too, in the basement, and knock stuff down upstairs, and it was great. But Were you starting to learn, and you said you had your own instructors outside of your family? Was this still in Israel, or had you moved to the States at this time?
My family moved to the U.S. when I was 12, and so I started taking lessons on classical guitar, which I can play none today, but that's how I started taking lessons when I was very little, like, 7 or 8.
Okay.
But obviously, as a 7 or 8-year-old, I was not very serious about that. So by the time we moved and I was 12 years old, that's when I decided I wanted an electric guitar. So I started taking private instruction in the Boston area, which is where we moved to. At that point, I had a little bit of a background just because I wasn't like totally foreign to the concept of holding a guitar in my lap and playing some chords and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's more or less where it started, and I really got serious about it in early high school.
Now, when you first started to take lessons, what do you remember? What the guitar was? Your first guitar?
I had a Mexican Strat. It wasn't a Squire. It was like a one notch above a Squire Strat.
Mm-hmm.
It actually wasn't. It wasn't bad. It actually had from what I remember, it had a pretty fast neck considering it was like a $300 guitar. But yeah, that was my beginning instrument.
That would have had the modern C shape back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it still probably had a 9.5-inch radius, but having that modern back to it, it was slimmer than the.
And that's really funny. I mean, I actually, one of my guitars is a Mexi Strat, and honestly, the more I play it, the better it gets. I of course changed the pickups and everything, but it's
that factory does very well.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can get for the amount that you can pay for something now. It's there. We've had this discussion many times that inexpensive guitars are very usable guitars nowadays. And when she was coming up, it was definitely available by then. Not like some of us coming up decades before that, and you get a guitar that you can't even play and it discourages the hell out of you. This is totally different.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that she said it was a fast neck from what she can remember, because you don't associate with like a 9.5-inch being a fast fretboard.
Unless it had, big jumbo frets on it, then it would help.
It could be faster, yeah.
That would definitely. But you got that when you were 12, you said? Or
yep.
Is that 12 years old?
Wow. That is very cool.
It's I'm looking at this. I'm looking at your Wikipedia page. and I'm blown away by this thing. I mean, this is just crazy. And you went to Berkeley in Boston, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
John Petrucci. I mean,
right.
That whole camp came out of there. That entire band came out of that college. And,
well, Boston, not a bad place to move to.
No, no. Good college town, I heard.
Yeah, I think they got a college there somewhere. Well, what's the Spinal Tap joke?
Yeah, they said,
don't worry about it. It's not a big college town anyway.
That's where I took it.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So you got your first guitar and you're taking lessons. Who did you start playing with? Did you start playing with your brothers more and more, or some of your peers? And did you put something together? I mean, we all started to make music with other people at some point in time. Did you have a garage band, or did you do things with your brothers first?
Well, I mean, my guitar playing brother is 9 years older than me. So when I was in high school, and he was in Berkeley, like, it wasn't really cool for him to hang out with me. You know what I mean? We lived in a nice community, and there were a lot of kids at my school who played music and stuff. So I would jam with kids from my class and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of them were not necessarily into the exact same kind of stuff that I was. So in high school, I did spend a lot of time just like transcribing music and learning guitar music on my own by ear, and a lot of that was a lot of my practice hours. And then we also had a really good jazz program in my high school, so I played in the jazz band and all that kind of stuff, and that kind of prepped me for Berkeley pretty well. And then when I got there, I was in bands, and I had my own band, which which I wrote material for, and we had gigged that live in the area prior to my recording my first album, which was with those guys. So that was a really good experience to be able to do that in college, along with actually going to music school. You know, a lot of what Berklee was what you did outside of school rather than what you did inside of school.
Really interesting.
Well, I like the part where it says that she started teaching at the age of 19.
Yeah, they got me into the summer programs at Berklee very young, and that was cool. It was a good experience. It was they run these summer camps for high school students that are supposed to give you like a little taste of Berklee and stuff. So the first few years were a little awkward, because the kids knew I wasn't that much older than they were. So and being female and all that stuff, and not having experience with it at that point, it was definitely it was definitely a learning experience for sure, but a great one at that.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously you were good enough for them to put faith in you, to put you in a teaching position. That's saying something right there.
Or so they thought. Right?
Well, you had them fooled anyway.
Now, one thing also, because I'm just going through this here, you've obviously become very known from YouTube. Your videos have done substantially well according to this page here. Now, you're definitely one of the younger ones that artists that we've talked to since we've started this show. I think we've had a couple other people that were, JD Simo. He's a young guy.
Yeah.
But you seem to be definitely more connected in that type of thing. How did you discover that? Well, I guess you've just grown up on this, right? See, this is different. See, guys like us, we had a whole section of our life, literally the first 3/4 of our lives, without this device, without this internet, without the medium,
right,
and all that. What is that like for somebody that's in your age bracket? That's the only thing you've known. I mean, did you when you came to like ear training and stuff, did you go to YouTube or use like Guitar Pro, any of these tablature type things, or did you actually do it the old way where you sat down, put the whatever on the CD, I guess, and plug through the thing? Is that how you did it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I do consider myself to have just kind of missed the YouTube generation by like a year or two. I think YouTube came out when I was 17 or 18, and when it was very new, it did not have the saturation, the content that it has on it now.
Yeah.
So the bulk of my learning songs was by ear, if not all of it, So by the time YouTube had come around, even though I was still young and all that, I had already done so much transcribing on my own that it had just become the easiest and fastest way I was already doing it. I just didn't change it at that point. So,
cool.
Now I have the access to it, and because I'm so used to doing things the other way, I almost don't take as much advantage of it as I could or should, or whatever. So now I just kind of use it as a good resource if I really need it. But I've just grown accustomed to doing it the quote old-fashioned way in my younger years, that I kind of just never got into it as much as someone who would have been like a year or two younger than me even.
Gotcha. Well, that's a good thing, because we've had this discussion many times, how we said, by doing it the other way, the old-fashioned way, I guess, that ear gets so much more developed than if you have this other crutch that can help you out.
Just completely spoon-fed to you all the time.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't take any effort on your part to figure things out, because somebody's already done it for you. All you need to do is copy it at that point.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, doing it your way, I think you develop more musically, and your ear develops, and you know more of what you're hearing when you hear something. You can recognize it more easily.
Sure.
Because I agree. And it's funny because you mentioned the Showtime video, which it's funny. I haven't heard that mentioned in several years. It's a couple of years old now, but you know, I'll get messages from people or YouTube comments or whatever, and everybody's like, "Where did you find the tabs for this? Can you send me a tab for this? Find a tab for this?" And I you know, I don't want to be like, "Well, sorry, I didn't get that anywhere," you know. And
I did it myself.
Yeah, you know, and you know, with my records and stuff, it's people do request tabs, and I'm thinking about doing it. I don't know about doing the whole record, because I know that if I do it, I'm going to be the one transcribing it, and writing it out is a lot of work. So I might do a couple songs here and there, but I feel a little bit better when it's my music and I'm just like transcribing it, and it can be sold as an official transcription, and you know it's not going to be wrong. It's not going to be some random person's tabs on the internet. So that's a different thing. But for the most part, I don't know what to tell people, you know.
Well, you did it your way, you know.
Yeah, because when I saw her playing the song, I was like, yeah, I've never seen that transcribed.
Wow.
Anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I picked that song because, well, first of all, I love it. I think it's one of the best songs on that record. There's a few really good ones. That's one of my favorites.
That is a beast of a song.
Yeah, and you know, I was like, well, it's vocal, so I have maybe a shot. Probably not as difficult as the Jason Becker instrumentals. But yeah, I mean, I noticed that at least at the time, there was no cover of it, and I just kind of saw an opening and saw an opportunity with it. And not in like, you know, again, not in an opportunistic kind of a way, but it's just kind of like, I love this song. It's something that seemingly has not been done. Why not take a crack at it? Might be cool. And so I'm, you know, happy with how it turned out.
Yeah,
sure.
You should be. It's
I mean,
a good cover.
There's another thing she put out there, and I don't want to use I'm not even going to use the phrase, but it took a lot of chutzpah.
Yes.
To put this out there. She did something and put it out under Guthrie Govan's solo played by 18-year-old girl. You know? Yeah. And man, you know, I mean, just you got to read that twice before you do anything else. Like,
sure.
What?
Well,
how did that happen?
You know, well, it's actually, you have an interesting perspective about it when you say it takes chutzpah, but like, when I think back at it now, I'm so embarrassed. Like, how could I have titled it that? You know? But I guess that's the mind of an 18-year-old. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
God bless, you know.
Well, I'm glad you see it that way. You know, it was just one of those things. That's another one of those testaments to YouTube having been that young at that point, because that was one of the early years of YouTube, and you know, I had heard of Guthrie through YouTube, just like everybody else who had heard of him as that. You know, he wasn't nearly as well known as he is now, and I just kind of, I don't know, there wasn't a lot of stuff out there like that, and at the time, that was the YouTube marketing. That was the way to get your video have views. Now, you do something like that, and you know, it's just saturated by so many other videos that are trying to break through with a title like that. Yeah. At the time, it was just kind of like the thing to do, or at least so I thought, being an 18-year-old, you know.
Well, 18-year-olds are, you know, indestructible, you know, and it's you do anything you want to do, and that's great. That's great.
Well, hey, listen, you know, the age being attached to it has no guarantee on the quality of the work. So,
oh no, that's for sure.
You know, I can relinquish responsibility from that one, right?
Only if you want to. Only if you want to.
Look, I think it's fun to like look back and look at myself playing like what seems like such a long time ago, and you know, that's why I kept it up there. It's just like, it's a cute little thing, you know. I just, looking back, I'm just like thinking of 18-year-old me being like, why did you call it that, you know? But, you know, it's just one of those things.
Well, you know, it got you a guitar endorsement, right?
It did, actually.
So
you can't argue with that.
So I would call that success. Yeah. You know, somebody noticed and went, hey.
Listen, I don't really know what I was trying to accomplish with that. It was just, I think it was one of those things where like, that was my first YouTube video, and it was like, early enough in YouTube's life for it to just get traction however it did, and I'm grateful for that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And what was the guitar endorsement at that point?
So it was an endorsement by a small custom guitar company called Inspire Guitars. They're out of Virginia, and they make great instrument, like mostly Strat style guitars, like pimped out Strats and stuff. And they're awesome, and they treated me extremely nicely for years. They said themselves that they're believers in guitar players wanting to play all kinds of different instruments, and as they are guitar players themselves, like that was kind of their mentality. So it was not really exclusive in any way, but we had a really great relationship for a long time. I have a lot of guitars from them, really enjoyed playing them, and it was a good symbiotic relationship for a long time.
Cool. Were you playing out a lot? Did you have your own a band under your own name by that point, or? Yeah,
that was when I was in college, and I just started playing with my band. And actually, it's funny how it all comes full circle, because I think the very last time I played that guitar before I signed with Ibanez was actually when I sat in with the Aristocrats in 2011.
Wow.
So funny how it all comes together.
Yeah, it's so funny how.
I think that was the last time I played that guitar before I went to 7-string.
Oh my God.
So I actually never thought of it in those terms before, but that's kind of funny when you think about it like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. What was your rig at that point?
It's the same rig it is now. I have a PV-JSX head. I was using a Marshall cab at that point, but now I have a Inignator Tourmaster 2x12, and it sounds great. I'm a fan of that head and the combination of that head and the cab.
The Joe Satriani, signature model.
Yeah, JSX. Yeah.
It was a short-lived endorsement with them, because now he's with Marshall.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What they call it, the JVM, I think is what the new one is.
Yeah. I think PV makes a similar model that, obviously cannot be titled the same thing.
Sort of like,
entirely sure. I think it's like XXX or something. But don't quote me on that, because I haven't done enough research to know.
I think you're right, because like when Eddie left, they had to take away 5150. It's now the 6505 or the 6550. 6550.
Yeah, they do a 6505 also.
Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, that is. It's 6505.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they have this Triple X, which I think is the JSX model.
Right.
That would make sense.
I don't know enough about it, but I think you are right there.
I think so. I mean, again, I never know if those amps are exactly what they were or not, but I think it's cool that they try to maintain something that they know their demographic likes, because I'm a fan of that head, and I know that having to, if I wanted a couple of backups, I'm just looking at used eBay stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Now, I don't want to, and I want to make sure that this comes across correctly.
Okay.
And I don't want to dismiss anything because you're a woman, but were like really, really young, sitting in with these guys, the Aristocrats, correct?
Yeah.
I
guess.
You have to be somewhat of a virtuoso on the instrument, I would think.
I would think.
I would think your acceleration on this instrument, I think, is a couple, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of what just an average person would be.
A normal developmental curve would be.
Yeah, or somebody even with exceptional skills at your age, because those guys don't play around.
Yeah, these things are hard to gauge because, well, at least having gone to music school and having been around musicians for my whole life, it's really hard, like, to gauge like what's a normal development, and what's exceptional skill, and you kind of come to understand that everybody has, it seems obvious, but everybody has different strengths and weaknesses, and what may seem like a lack of skill in one person may be made up by really interesting stuff that they do that nobody else does. It's hard to put your finger on stuff like that, and that's why labels on that kind of stuff make me feel a little strange, because I don't know how to answer questions like that. I just know that I've been around a lot of really talented people, and at that point, it's just kind of like everybody's really great.
How did you get to meet Guthrie and the Aristocrats? I'm sure you knew them before you sat in with it, I would assume.
Well, I had actually, man, I can't believe we're like going back to that video, but I think I wrote Guthrie a message, like a year or so after that video came out, and just told him like, hey, thank you for the inspiration, and I got a guitar endorsement out of this, and this video's done a lot of great things for me, and blah blah, just like fan mail, and and it was like through MySpace. It was really like a long time ago, and he had written me back and saying something like, it's one of my New Year's resolutions to sift through my old emails and respond to everyone, and just been really cool and stuff. And then the first time that he came to do a clinic at Berkeley, which was in 2009, way before the Aristocrats were ever a thing, it was my last semester, and having already kind of like known him and had the connection and whatever, I got to sit in with him then, which was extremely frightening, and great day, and everything that you could imagine that to be. And then the funny thing with the Aristocrats is that a few years later, I had started playing with Tony MacAlpine, and his record, his self-titled record, had just came out. This had just come out. This was in 2011. And Marco Miniman was one of the drummers on the record.
Wow!
So we thought that he was going to do the tour with us. So he ended up playing one show with us, and it was my very first show with Tony. So that's how I actually met Marco, and that was 2 weeks before the Aristocrats' first tour ever. It was like before the record had even come out. So he had brought Brian to that show. I met them there. So my meeting Marco and Brian was on a totally different capacity than having met Guthrie. It was somewhat more colleague-y vibe than like fangirl vibe. So by the time I had met everybody, it was just kind of like it had all come together and went from there. But it was on a totally different plane, just 2 years apart, how I met all those guys and how they met each other. That was all within a few months anyway.
Wow, it's really interesting. It's she's in a place where that probably happens quite often. To people,
yeah. Those cats probably come through.
Yeah,
they're all like they're really small circles. Everybody pretty much knows each other. It's a small. The music industry is a small world.
Right, but I mean, it does have pockets. I mean, it's like being in LA or something.
Sure.
You're constantly running into somebody,
Yeah.
and in the Boston area, the college area, it's in Berkeley area, it's pretty much the same.
But it's
thing.
it's like you've gone. I look at it like the way that that you meet these guys and you actually get to sit in with them is like going from 0 to 200 in about a foot and a half.
I'm not going to tell you it wasn't scary.
I mean, it's like, wow, I'm going to go play with the top guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I considered myself lucky, and I prepared for it as well as I could have, and I just tried to leave it at that.
Well, God bless you, man. Jesus, I would have probably been.
I mean, that's all you can do is prepare as best you can,
and
just leave. Because other than that, you'll just freak yourself out.
Do you
that's
think?
bound to be a screw up then,
And it's not even just that. It was also, I think, again, it was because obviously I was young, and it was because it was at Berkeley, which adds another dimension to the whole thing.
You got all your peers sitting there watching you.
Yeah, like being among like 1,000 other guitar players, and like you almost feel kind of guilty. It's like, oh, I was the one who got to do this, so now I have to get up in front of all the other students and like, this is a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of stuff in your head.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Of course, now having been friends with everybody for such a long time, it's a totally different thing. But that was just the beginning.
Man, that's so cool.
It is. Now you did a stint with the Iron Maidens, right?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Of all things, Craigslist.
Really?
Yes.
It's either the Iron Maidens or I'm going to get murdered.
I wasn't even the one who found the ad. It was a friend of mine who did, and she thought of me. She was like, "This is right up your alley. You should get in touch with them." And I did. I was living in Boston at the time, and I'd come out to LA to play with them occasionally, and that was that story pretty much.
Who was the other guitar player? Was it Courtney or was it? Oh, so you took what Nita actually took afterwards, right?
It was actually before Nita was in the
Interesting.
That's a group. You ever get a chance to see that, man? That is a good show.
Yeah.
They have Nikki Stringfield now. I think that's her name. Yeah. Because Nita is now out on the road with Alice Cooper.
Right.
But when you got your Ibanez endorsement, you went straight to 7-string?
Yeah.
How was that transition?
Well, the transition came about because I had started playing with MacAlpine, and that was kind of a requirement to play his music. And actually, Inspire made me a 7-string, and I did play that for a while before going to Ibanez. So the transition was not for the Ibanez instrument; it was for the gig that I was doing at the time, and the timing was right for a change, and the instrument made sense for what I was doing. So that change in gear was appropriate at the time.
Wow. Now, did you find it a big learning curve to go to 7-string? Personally, I've never picked one up, so
it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, but I found that, like, really the biggest thing about it in the beginning is the visual confusion. That's the first hurdle. Mm-hmm. After that, it's really up to you whether you utilize the whole instrument and, explore the possibilities or not. Like, you could have an extra string just sitting there if you didn't want to do anything. But in the beginning, the most challenging thing is, like, how do I get around the fact that this looks different than what I normally do? How am I going to play the stuff that I normally play on this? That's what I had to figure out in the short run. And in the short term. And in the long term, it just, it became my instrument, and gradually I explored the rest of the possibilities, and it just became what I play and what I do, and
cool.
Affected my writing and my lines and all that kind of stuff.
I guess it probably would affect your writing because there's something there that wasn't there before. There's an opportunity there that wasn't there before,
Right.
I've had the opportunity to play them.
Uh-huh.
And you gotta, if you haven't touched one, it'll take you about an hour to realize because now you use a low B, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because some guys actually will do 2 high E's or do even they go into the stratosphere with an A. A high A.
A high A. Wow.
Yeah, Steve Vai said, not too many people will do that because it does break when you bend it, because you're really tuning it way up. He said, but there are people that have done it, like himself. But mostly they go either a low B or they'll even drop that down to like an A or, something even crazier. But it took like 45 minutes to get used to not hitting that string when you went to like an E.
Right. I mean,
you had to...
You always know what's at the bottom, and now it's no longer the bottom
Exactly.
anymore.
You have to kind of reconfigure your hand.
Yeah.
And then realize, like, oh, there's an extra side to this instrument. There's this other note.
I'd go with a double high E. Just make it simple. But then what's the point?
Exactly.
Unless you want to sound like Roger McGuinn on one string, I don't know.
Now, what is that, a 52 or what is it? Is it 60? What is that string?
My low B string?
Yeah.
I use a 54 gauge, and
54,
I use a standard 9 set.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Light top, heavy bottom kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a question for you watching you play, and this really has nothing to do with 6 or 7 string. I don't think. I don't see how it could. But when you play your runs and solos and things like that, how do you think of you personally? How do you think of the neck? Do you picture it in boxes, or do you have it mapped out with regard to notes? I mean, what are your eyes and your brain and your hands see on that neck when you play?
Well, for me, the note choice takes top priority when I'm thinking about lines and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I guess the next thing is, how do I organize it the easiest way there is to play it for me? Based on just, like economy of motion and articulation, how I want to approach every note and all those things. And it just factors into, and, of course, shapes and boxes kind of creep in there because I think it's pretty impossible to get 100% away from that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I always let my ears guide me, whether it's improv or whether I'm writing the lines, that's my most important thing. So however that ends up manifesting itself visually is kind of secondary to me.
So you pretty much plan out note-wise what you want to hear, and it really doesn't. I mean, you ask somebody like, I haven't asked him personally, but I know I've heard him say this. You ask like Joe Bonamassa, and he'll go, I play in boxes.
Oh, yeah.
I play in boxes. There's this position, there's this position, there's this position, and he's he's flawless in his execution and very fast in the execution of that. But he'll self-admit it. He plays in boxes.
But does that revolve around more blues players that play in the boxes as opposed to? I
think it's a little bit more conducive to that. I mean, but again, it's hard to stay away from the boxes. So I guess maybe the best way to describe it would be the fingerings and the shapes and the boxes and all that stuff for me are a result of what I want to play and
what you want to hear in the first place.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it does happen to fall into boxes because those boxes work for a reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it ends up falling into it more or less. I mean, I'm not, if you watch me play, it's not like I have crazy fingerings and stuff, but it depends on what you're playing too. It's not always going to look the same way. And melodies tend to be different. The simpler the melody, the more I want to play it on one or two strings for me.
Mm-hmm.
It just really depends. It depends a lot on the articulations too.
Yeah, I watched some of the videos and I'm thinking to myself, it has to be note selection and knowing where all, she knows probably the neck blindfolded up and down, upside down and right side up, because that's what it seemed like. It seemed like your note selection was first and foremost, and you knew where to execute that anywhere you wanted to, and then occasionally you'd see a little box and you go, okay, well, that's, it just, the melody just happened to wind up there, where the solo just happened to wind up there in this box shape. But I mean, to me, it really appeared that you were, you had the neck mapped out in your mind and you knew what notes you wanted to play and you knew exactly where the one was that you wanted. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, again, that's true to an extent, but it's boxier than you think. But again, that's a result of what I'm doing and not where I'm trying to start from.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's boxy, they're awful big boxes. That's all I gotta say. They're awful big boxes.
And sometimes they go across the neck.
Exactly.
That may be the perception. It doesn't look like that to me. It does look kind of boxy to me.
Wow,
that's so cool.
That is interesting.
Now, were you with Tony when the equipment was stolen?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Because I know he had his whole band, everything got taken, right?
Yeah, I know. I actually heard it. I heard about it during sound check for my show, one of my shows, and that was a weird time to be hearing that. I mean, any time would have been a weird time to hear that, but yeah, it's sad that it's happening to more and more people, and when it happens to people you used to play with and be on the road with, it's very strange and very heartbreaking.
Here's some irony. Is it irony? Irony.
Tell me first, and I'll tell you.
Okay. Because English is not my first language.
Words, they're hard.
Yes, they tend to beat me up. Guthrie, the Aristocrats, they had their stuff stolen in Italy. This is so crazy. It tells you how small the music community is, right? Because both guys, the Aristocrats and Tony MacAlpine, they both had their stuff stolen.
It's happened to, unfortunately, a lot more people than we want to know. I mean, I remember it happened to Jeff Loomis a couple of years ago. It's really depressing how commonplace that is, and I always wonder if the thieves, I guess it's a case by case basis, but I always wonder if they know who they're stealing from or what they're stealing necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know if they know who they're stealing from. They probably know what they're stealing, but I doubt they know what it means, man. Because that's you're screwing with somebody's livelihood.
Yeah. Well, remember,
it's their tools. It's a freaking tool.
The Pelham Blue Les Paul of Zach Wilde's, when it was stolen, the guy knew, the pawn shop owner knew something was up, because the guy sold him a Les Paul custom, nothing he's ever seen before, for $200.
$200, yeah.
So that was somebody looking for crack.
Oh, it's just that's a crackhead.
Yeah,
that's absolutely a crackhead. But yeah,
so we don't.
Yeah, we don't need to go there. And people, stop freaking stealing stuff. Just stop it.
I don't think anybody listening to this podcast is a thief.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But do you use your same rig for your band and for Tony?
No, I didn't. I used his Hughes and Kettner stuff. The first tour I did with him, I used the core blades, which is what he uses, and we actually use them in very, very different ways. Those amps are amazing. They have the capability to do so many things with them. So we sounded quite different on the same rig. And then last couple of years, I used the Triamp, and he used the core blade, and again, we have very different tone. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed those amps, and they were right for the gig, so I used them for that, and I used different stuff for my stuff,
Cool. Any pedals? Favorite pedals? Favorite effects?
I'm not really big on effects. I mean, I use the carbon copy delay, the MXR delay, and I use the analog chorus, the MXR analog chorus. I use the EP booster exclusively. Like, that's my always on pedal. That's part of my tone. And other than that, I mean, I'm not like big on effects. Like, I have a pedal board with a volume pedal and a tuner and like all the stuff that you need. But I just kind of like I try to get my finger tone out of the amp tone and have some delay on it, and a little bit of everything, but nothing really crazy, Well,
good on you.
That's right. It's
hell yeah,
comes from
man.
the fingers.
I like simple rigs. They're easy to travel with. They're easy to put together. I think the tone should come from the amp and the hands, and it's just how I've done things thus far. I'm not going to speak for what road I may or may not go down in the future, but that's what's worked for me so far.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you can start there, anything else is not a crutch. It's just an additional tool to make something different with.
Yeah.
If you really rely on it, then it's kind of more of a crutch. But you come up the old-fashioned way, and that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy's name is Robin Trower.
What I mean, that was his signature. Sound.
I love Robin Trower. I just
but the man can play without all that.
Yes,
as well.
he can.
He just found a signature
the
tone.
The Univibe, right?
Yeah, that's really, really recognizable for him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm just.
And there's
busted,
that too.
that.
I know. Yeah. Bust on Robin.
I know. So you use EMG pickups, because I've seen your videos on the EMG television.
Yeah.
Those are pretty sweet, because they're for 7 strings.
Yeah. I have the 5766 set in all my Ibanez guitars, and they're nice. They really feel like they feel and react like passive pickups to me. Like they're kind of like they're active, but they feel passive, and they sound great. And I mean, I know a lot of people who use them or have used them, and everybody, the consensus is pretty unanimous on that one.
Loomis uses those, right?
I don't know which set he uses. I mean, he plays EMG. I'm not sure exactly which set he uses or sets.
We have to interview those guys, because
the EMG guys. Yeah,
I want to know those numbers. It makes no sense. Like,
look it up.
The 81 and the 85. That is the standard set for a 6-string, right?
Right.
Like, every guy since dawn of time.
That's a square block.
Just a standard.
No adjusters, no screws. Yeah, right.
The whole thing, right? The 81's in the bridge. The 85's in the neck. It just doesn't even sound right. It sounds like they should be the other way. But
well, if it's a designator of hotness, then you would think.
Who knows?
But who knows? We'll have them on someday.
We have to have them on.
But we do have to let Nili go because
Yes.
she has another
She is.
appointment, and we're running her short on time here, so we do have to let you go. Thank you so much for taking the time. Anything you want to get out there? Any releases? Any dates you're playing? Tour dates? Anything you want to let the people know about?
Well, I can let them know about my somewhat still new record that came out last year called A Matter of Perception. And you can get your copy on my store by going to nilibrosh.com, NILIBROSH.com, or iTunes or Amazon or any of those places that anybody else gets records from.
Cool.
And features a lot of great rhythm section players, and hope you check it out.
And that website link will be on your show, on our webpage, on the front page, and it will stay there for
perpetuity.
That's right, when it goes to our archives. And if you decide to buy her album through Amazon,
it's
just
great
click
for
through,
everybody.
Click through our link on the front page.
There you go.
We get a little kickback from Amazon, and she gets another album
Nili
sale.
gets a sale. And we do have people that once they hear the artist that we interview, they go, now I got to hear their music, and they go out and buy it. So,
Cool.
Yeah, so it's great.
Man.
So, Nili, thank you again. Thanks for taking the time. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and
Thanks to you guys.
much continued success. And if you ever get around the East Coast, let us know. We'll come out and say hi.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care. Well, and there you have the story.
Yeah.
Born in Israel and now rocking the world with MacAlpine. And
she's amazing.
I know.
You know?
And
like, I mean, if you guys don't know who she is, if you don't know who she is, go out to YouTube, type in her name, watch some of that stuff. Just absolutely at another level of player.
Yeah, and honestly, usually, for me, it's going to take, one day past death because I'll never get it. But it usually takes a little bit longer for people to get to that level. But occasionally there's...
So you got she's just got that.
Right,
she's
got just got it, yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to say, and I was thinking about this, I have people that come up to me and they go, "Hey, man, who's your favorite guitar player?" And I swear it's all of them.
Right.
Because every person we talk to, and this is the coolest gig ever. I highly recommend it if you can do it. We talk to these guys and we hear their stories, guys and girls, women, and it's just the coolest damn thing. And no matter what the style is, it could be the most simplistic type kind of guitar player, but the guy's just got, or the woman's just got tons of soul.
Right.
Or it could be somebody like Nili who literally is shredding with MacAlpine. I mean, this is a guy who's never short on notes, or a Guthrie Govan,
Right.
And it's just, that's why it's like, it's all good, man. That's the beauty about music, is that there's no end.
And sometimes, for me, there can be a few too many notes, self-admittedly.
Absolutely.
But a lot of these people that we're seeing, and I guess we're coming across more of them, or there are just more of them now who are playing slightly differently. But they seem to be injecting more melody. It's becoming a more melodic playing.
How about this? When it all first started, right, with the instrumental guys, when, the Satches, and, when he really started cutting that groove in the 90s, I think it was see who could get to the finish line. Let's race.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you do 30 notes a second? I'm going to do 34.
Right. Who's got the bigger numbers?
Exactly. How can I make my wrist almost fly off?
Right.
So I think that lasted for a very short period of time. And like you said, now it's like, they're doing kind of more like the Steve Morse thing that Steve's been doing for 35 plus years, where it's, you got some of that in there, but you also have this thing called the melody line, and it's very, and it's listenable.
Right. It's a lot of it now is starting to, there's some speed in there because that's what they do.
Sure.
But there's a lot more melody interjected. It's not just running mindless scales. There's a lot more thought behind what goes into what they're playing.
Yep.
And and then I see a lot more of players like that also, slow down and have some soulful bends and things,
Sure.
and really, phrasing things differently than just a shredding mentality. And it's not just, if they're tapping, it's not just complete tapping for the sake of tapping.
It's like an extension of the
phrase. It's like, I need this note here.
Yeah.
And you just tap it because your fingers can't go 14 frets. And it's a lot more thought out
and
than
tasteful.
it used to. And taste. Thank you. That's a great word. Tasteful.
Yeah.
It's becoming more tasteful.
Yeah, it's not you don't have to be some diehard fan to be able to listen to it.
Right.
It's not like A1 steak sauce. It's not an acquired taste. You can actually sit there and listen to it.
Yes, and I think Nili is one of those players. It was easy listening.
Yeah, man.
Well, I don't mean easy listening, and that's a whole different music. But it was pleasant to listen to.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
So, my friend, until next time, I am Mick Marcelino.
Yes, you are, because that only one of us can be.
And you?
I'm still Jeff Bober.
Of course you are. And we're always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.